The basement changed. It evolved from a dusty subterranean tomb into a battleground with stakes that would echo through time. Two of the mask-wearing cutters moved in a synchronized dance of death, crossing in front of Darek and then weaving in opposite directions as they flew at Maya. They were quick, darting through the shadowed space like bats after a juicy catch, but to Maya, they might as well have been moving in slow motion. Most people would have moved to meet them, but not Maya. Maya had the advantage here, and she knew it. These two were young, kids who could still remember a better life, and they probably had come into the organization as Maya was leaving. They were used to fighting sheep, culling lambs from the herd, but Maya was no lamb. She had teeth and claws of her own, and she was ready for a real fight. She remained still, letting the overconfident wolves come to her so she could show them that they still had things to be afraid of.
Don't be too quick to go for the kill. Save the moment. Take your time. Most of the targets have never felt their life was in danger, have never looked down and seen their blood dribbling out. They have no concept of the dance of death that you weave, but you must know it, love it, respect it, and submit to it.
Whose voice was that? She didn't dare even think his name. Darek was bad enough, but Darek was a shadow in the ever-growing shade thrown by that one. They came in, one going low and one going high as they tried to cut her apart. Maya caught the rising arc of a blade on her knife and sidestepped the others as she slammed her forehead into the mask hard enough to break it like a china plate. It would have been enough to knock out a normal person, but Maya barely felt it. Her body was still a weapon, if not a rusty one. She winced as the blocked weapon slid across her thigh, her jeans stopping it from opening her up in a fatal wound. The other shadow, however, had overstepped, and Maya was about to show it why that was a mistake. A fatal mistake. The blade slid easily into the masked cutter's neck, scraping the side of the mask in a minute way that made her squirm, and it fell to the ground as its blood pumped out. Maya dipped before the dying cutter had even hit the ground, snapping up his knife as she threw it into the chest of the one who was trying to get his wits about him. It sank deep, flowering red across the front of his dark gray tunic. Never black. Black would actually stand out, but gray was the color of shadows. It was an old catechism, and it came to her easily. Move slow, know your path, wide eyes are alive eyes. Do not fear the sheep. Wear your gray like a warm blanket and let it protect you from the monsters amongst the herd. Your blade is your only friend and must be trusted with your life. It all flashed past her like a movie reel, and she could see her time spent with the organization. A relatively short time in the grand scheme of things that had felt like a lifetime. As the shadow with the cracked mask fell, the pieces broke apart and she could see a blonde boy with a face like an asteroid. He was young, so young, and his face was full of confusion and pockmarks. His hair was short, recently cut, and his teeth stuck out like a beaver. Just another lost soul that slipped into the dark and never came back, and now never would. He died quietly, so that was something. His friend was gagging out their last breaths as Darek looked at them with a lack of concern and plenty of disappointment. Darek shook his head.
Well, damn! This was their first mission, Maya, so I guess they failed. Little knives, ever to remain in their sheaths. But that's the good thing about knives, Maya,
he said as two more shadows appeared beside him.
We always have more.
Maya tensed, ready for a fight, but it appeared that Darek had been more correct than he realized. She felt it when a third dropped from the ceiling and landed on her shoulders, knocking the wind out of her as it bore her to the ground.
Poor Maya.
Darek said, smiling.
Looks like you forgot the number one rule. There's always more shadows, and always where you least expect it.
We should help her,
Lena said, looking back up the tunnel to the noises coming from the basement. They had gone a little further down the tunnel, but they didn't get too far from Maya. They all sensed that, weapons or not, the person that they had knocked out earlier had been a fluke, and if they encountered any of them in a fair fight, they would be dead meat. The tunnel was made of raw earth, roots hanging from the ceiling, and grains pattering to the floor as they stood talking. As unstable as it might be, it felt safer than being in the basement.
Why?
Connor asked.
Because she's our friend?
Lena said, looking at him like he'd lost his mind.
Is she? We've known her for 8 months. Did she mention this to anyone else, that she was some kind of KGB sleeper agent or something? Did any of you know that she owned a knife and could wield it like an extra in Orphan Black? Because this is all news to me.
Jack looked away, trying to make sense of it as the bat sagged. He should have known these things. He was the one who met Maya first, at the student mixer on the first day of term. He had introduced her to Connor and Lena. They had talked over coffee and walked the track when she was feeling anxious. Jack had been there for her, but the more he looked at their time together, the more he realized that he had been talking and she had mostly been listening. What did he really know about her? He knew that she'd grown up in Pennington, a small town about an hour from campus. He knew her parents were dead, killed by a home invader a couple of years ago. He knew that she was attending college with a scholarship and a generous amount of money from her parents' life insurance policies. He knew that she was 25. He knew that she was pretty when she smiled, though she didn't smile often. He knew he liked her, though he probably would never admit it.
We know she stayed behind so we could run,
Lena said, pulling him back to reality.
And we know that whoever that guy was, he knew her. That makes me think that she's involved in this somehow.
But she didn't even plan the trip.
Lena said.
She didn't even want to go, remember?
But she did know where we were going. What if she told her friends where to find us and now she's out there hunting us as we speak?
I don't think so,
Lena said, looking at Jack as if she expected him to back her up.
I don't think you do either. If she was going to kill us, why drag us out into the middle of nowhere?
Deniability?
Connor said, but it sounded like he was grasping.
I don't think she brought them here. I think they are hunting her, and if we let them get her, then they'll kill us just to be rid of witnesses. Our best hope is to help Maya, and hope that she can get us out of here.
Jack looked at Connor, and when the other boy looked back, hopeful, Jack realized that he was seeing where he would land. Jack was torn, wanting to trust Maya, but not sure if trusting her was right.
4 is better than 3.
He finally said, heading back up the tunnel toward the basement. The others followed, resolved to follow him into whatever came next. Maya squirmed, trying to get out from under the shadow. This one was no half-starved kid, though. No waif, either. This was probably some farm kid whose parents had an overdue mortgage that was eating into their drug addiction. The kid had to be 200 pounds, and it was a wonder it hadn't broken her collarbone when he came down on her. Maya couldn't have spoken to it, but she was almost certain that she had sensed it the last minute and shifted just enough to stop it from squashing her like a bug. Unfortunately, now she was pinned under the shadow, and she couldn't lift her blade to get it off. The mask it wore was pointed at Darek, waiting for the sign, and Darek looked at Maya as she gasped under him.
What shall I do, little Maya?
He said, bending down but still keeping a healthy distance from her.
Should I bring you back? like he wants me to. Or...
He had a knife in his hand faster than even Maya would have believed, his eyes on the blade as he spoke to it instead of her.
Should I tell them you resisted and kill you myself? Would certainly be a waste of a good cutter, but my own shadow would grow from it. Who knows? They might even let me direct my own slasher. If I...
The fire poker went through the side of the big shadow, and it groaned behind its mask as it stumbled sideways and one foot came off of Maya. Maya pivoted, pushing the big shade off her as it fell. Connor shoving the poker in deeper. Lena had her under the arm, helping her up as Jack stood between her and Darek. He was pretty brave, she reflected, as she watched Derek's face fill with disbelief at the sheep standing in front of him. He was a fool, but he was braver than any of the herds that she had ever gone to slay. Maya caught her breath as Connor ripped the poker out and pushed it into the shadow's chest again, though he needn't have been bothered. Through some kind of dumb luck, Connor had skewered just the right spot, and the big thing had been dead about 5 seconds after it had hit the ground. He had probably punctured a lung, but Maya couldn't be sure. What she could be sure of was that now they would come after her, unless she played her ace in the hole.
Catch, Darek,
She yelled, flinging her hand out of her pocket and watching him twitch to the side. What hit the wall not far behind where he'd been standing was a sphere of metal about the size of a golf ball. It struck the wall and immediately emitted this loud, high-pitched squeal that sent the shadows to their knees. Darek was reaching for his ear, ripping out the earpiece he wore as the same sound came screaming from it. Maya smiled grimly. She hadn't been sure that it would work the way she wanted it to, but the testing had gone well, making her think it would work well enough.
What the hell did you do?
Darek asked, wobbling a little as he put a hand to his ear.
what's wrong, Darek? Don't you know your own gear? I'm sure you've got a few shriekers on your own belt for cell phone-addicted sheep.
Darek went pale, taking out his phone as he checked the screen and cursed. Difference is, mine comes with a little surprise. My shrieker scrambles communications too, a slight EMP party favor that knocks out your comms and your tech.
No more night vision for your lurkers. No more wireless instructions. No distress calls if something goes wrong. Now you're just as vulnerable as the sheep. How does it feel?
You little bitch.
Darek growled, regaining his composure quickly enough.
It makes no difference. The slasher has begun, and it won't end until you and your little friends are dead, or every shadow and every cutter on the ground are dead. You only delay the inevitable. It's futile to fight against us. You know that.
I know that the shrieker I fixed up wasn't the only thing I stole out of my kit before I left the organization. Want to see what else I took?
She pulled out a second silver ball, and when she threw it, Darek was halfway up the stairs like a cat who had found himself on a hot stove.
You'll have to be quicker than that.
But the bead that she had thrown was glowing red hot, and the ground of sheep were moving into the tunnel. He was halfway up the stairs when the ember exploded, sending the can up in an inferno of sounds and fury. He jumped, slamming into the door jamb in a sloppy action movie dive, and felt his pants growing very hot around his legs as he looked down to see flames eating at his gray dress pants. He smacked them with his gloved hands, wincing as the heat nibbled his fingers, and looked down to see the other two shadows lying in pieces on the floor. Shadows were expendable, but Darek grumbled. He could have given them a few more of the ones with half a brain. He was down 5 shadows now, but that was okay, he thought, as he made sure the pants he had left were no longer burning. As he had told Maya, there were always more shadows.
Maya.
They were running, showing their heels as they went down the tunnel and, hopefully, to something better. Maya had pulled Jack and Lena into the tunnel at the last minute, telling Connor to come on as they got past the explosion an instant before it happened. She had seen the shelves fall in front of the entrance when the ember went off, saw the opening of raw earth collapse, and now they were making a break for whatever lay at the end of this tunnel. If it was a dead end, then they would double back and take their chances with whatever shadows and cutters were left. She didn't even begin to let herself believe that Darek was dead. Darek was a survivor. The streets had been his home and his teacher since he was old enough to walk. And he had had as many lives as a cat and reflexes to match. If he had sent Darek, then Maya knew that he wanted her badly. Maya came up short as Lena dug her heels in, and Maya realized she was still dragging the two of them along behind her. Connor was huffing and puffing not far behind them. When they stopped, he doubled over, coughing and breathing hard as he tried to catch his breath. Lena was looking at her like she wasn't sure she wanted to go any further, and Jack was looking anxious as he tried to look everywhere all at once.
Come on.
Maya said.
We have to go before they regroup.
The entrance collapsed behind us.
Lena said.
No one is coming to get us down here.
She had found a flashlight somewhere, probably in the basement, and the light cast her in strange shadows.
You don't know them,
Maya said.
If they decide to dig it out, they will. They could be after us in minutes.
You're right.
Lena said.
We don't know them. But you do, don't you? You know them and they know you.
Maya was looking at her friends, all of them arrayed against her as they stood in the light, and she hovered in the dark.
We don't...
Make time, Maya. There are people trying to kill us, trying to kill you, and we want to know why. The quicker you spill it, the quicker we can be on the move again.
Maya blew out harshly.
You want to do this now, really? While we're underground and possibly surrounded by shades and cutters, God knows what else.
Lena shrugged.
What other option do we have?
Maya started to scream at them, to tell them that they needed to get out of there, but Lena found her breath and spoke over her.
The fact of the matter is, Maya, we don't know much about you, and that's pretty scary right now. We need to trust you so we can get out of here. But how do we trust you when you seem to be wrapped up in all of this? We need to be able to trust you. And until we can, we're not going anywhere with you.
Maya turned to the path that would, hopefully, lead them to the exit and turned back to them desperately. She considered just leaving them there, but realized the futility of it almost immediately. She could leave them. She could escape and go back to school and probably keep a step ahead of the organization. But if she did that, then she might as well just go back and join them. They were scared. That was a normal emotion to have during something like this, and what she knew could help them be less scared. Whether she admitted it or not, she had gotten them into this, and she owed them an explanation.
Okay, but we have to be quick. I don't have time to lay it all out, but I can give you the Cliff Notes version.
She sat on the floor, Lena sitting too as Jack hunkered like a baseball player taking a knee. Connor flopped onto the dirt, sending up dust as he breathed deeply.
When I was younger, not a lot younger, but younger, I was sold to a man we call the Director. This man taught me how to be a killer, how to be a cutter, and how to move as silently as death itself. He taught me so many things, but what he never taught me was how it would affect me.
Darek came out of the cabin, his shadows and cutters around him as they trailed in his wake. He stepped into the tree line, put his fingers in his mouth, and whistled loud and long. The brush crackled, a minute sound but loud as thunder to Darek, and one of his cutters he had posted out on the grounds walked towards him. "Greetings, Master Cutter," it signed in the intricate hand patterns that they had all learned to use in their first months with the organization.
Have you eliminated the target?
Darek rolled his eyes before saying,
Don't you think I would have her body if I had?
The director instructed us to.
Darek slapped his hands away as he started to sign back at him.
The director isn't here, and the sheep are already scattered. Speak to me like a normal man, Engineer Richard.
Fine, Cutter Darek. If the target is at large, then why are you here?
Richard was always easy to fluster.
Because she's collapsed the tunnel we didn't know was in the basement. And I need to know where it goes.
Darek said, trying to keep the desire to throttle Richard from consuming him. Richard dug out his phone and started going through the schematics of the cabin. They had mapped the place ahead of time, expecting a basement and an attic and maybe a coat closet, but not a secret tunnel to who knew where. That had not been in the briefing, and Darek, suddenly, wasn't feeling good about this mission. Maya shouldn't have been this prepared. She should have gotten soft, lazy, and complacent. But she had weapons and tools, and she had thwarted Darek in a way that nobody else ever had before. Darek didn't like being made a fool of, and he meant to fix this before it got out of control.
The schematics show no tunnel,
Richard said.
There should be no reason for it to exist. Are you sure it's not just a...
I'm sure
Darek grabbed him by the front of his tunic.
that if you don't get me some damn information on where my sheep is gone, I'm gonna break your skull open and find an engineer who will.
Richard shook him off.
Okay. There's no tunnel on the schematics, but there's a cave nearby. It's a special cave by all accounts. Lots of local legends around it. It's probably where they're going if there's a tunnel. At least, that's what I would guess.
Darek snatched his phone, and when Richard protested, Darek put a knife against his throat. Richard put his hands up, not wanting the phone more than he wanted his blood to stay in his body, and Darek hit the button on the phone that would summon all of their remaining shadows and cutters with working comms. He wanted to get to this cave before they did, so they could set up an ambush, and he wanted it done before the director realized that he had been bested by the deserter. Come on, he told Richard. We've got places to be. The two of them moved toward the cave, and the shadows moved with them.